show.
Welcome to episode 59 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really like the content, we would absolutely love you if you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. All right, everybody. It is finally here, the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It is the most exciting time of year, and of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs, with a franchise record 115-point season, are being rewarded with the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions in the first round of the playoffs. We are going to get into that and do a full preview. I promise you are not going to want to miss this episode as we go over Leafs Lightning. We're going to run through the entire league and all the other first round series. It's awesome. All right. This is going to be one of our best shows of the year. I'm calling it right now. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Anthony Bruno. Just got back from a Sunday dinner at my mother's house, like a good Italian boy does. 115 points for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And nobody cares. Nobody cares in Leafland, not in the slightest. Episode 59 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. Shout out goes to Keith Ollie. And if you can remember correctly, he came to the Leafs from Calgary as part of the Dion Phaneuf deal. And being a Saskatchewan boy, 6'6", played for the Brandon Wheat Kings, Brian Burke went on that mic and went on this big rant about Keith Ollie's this big piece, and he was so happy to get him. And quite often, like he was wrong in his tenure as GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Berkey was wrong. Keith Ollie finished his Leafs career playing 57 games with a mighty 2 goals and 2 assists. Thanks, Berkey. Thanks for
God, that is such a Brian Burke player.
Yep.
Just truculence written all over that guy. Nothing else, just truculence.
He's tall.
That's it.
Yeah,
tall, long reach.
Yeah. Yep. 6'6", 222 pounds from Saskatchewan. Sign him up, coach.
Oh my goodness. But Lepore, before we get into this podcast, we have a special announcement. So let the viewers know, let the viewers and listeners know what's going on.
Okay, everyone. I am holding up an authentic Adidas John Tavares home Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And this is part of the most recent giveaway on the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. If you would like to get your hands on this jersey to celebrate the start of the playoffs, comment down below. You ready, everyone? Comment down below with your Instagram handle, where you are from, and who will win the series between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And don't forget, in how many games will that team win that series?
Love it. We are so excited when we give away these Leaf jerseys. We've already given away 2 of these, and now we are giving away an authentic John Tavares jersey. So just like Lepore said, you must like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then in the comment section down below, leave your Instagram handle, tell us where you're from, and let us know who is going to win the first round series between the Leafs and Lightning and in how many games. And then we will give away this jersey sometime after the conclusion of this series when the Leafs have hopefully moved on to the second round for the first time since 2004 and make a lot of us happy. But that remains to be seen.
Awkward pause.
And now, Lepore, we will transition into what is about to go down on Monday, May 2nd, as the Leafs begin the first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. We talked about it on this podcast several times. I'm on the record as saying this, Lepore, and I'm sure you had similar thoughts at the time. I said the one team I did not want the Leafs to run into in round 1 is this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Give me any other team in the Eastern Conference, Florida,
Really?
New York, Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina. Give me any of those teams in the opening round. I am terrified of this Lightning team. I think they are absolutely stacked. Don't let it fool you. Listen, I know they had 110 points this season and they were really good, but don't let it fool you that they had the 8th best record in the NHL and maybe they don't appear to be on that same elite tier as Colorado and Florida and Carolina and Calgary and the teams that finished ahead of them in the standings. This team is going to be locked and loaded, ready to go game 1 against the Leafs. So Lepore, before I totally get into this,
Yeah, you seem freaked out, Bruno.
I want to hear your initial thoughts of this this first round series.
You know what? I'm okay with it. Bring it on. I think my mentality is different than most Leafs fans who are just sitting there and saying, you know what? Please God, let us win a round. I'm saying, please God, let us win the cup or at least go on a run. And you're going to play these teams eventually. If the Leafs have a hard-fought series to the Tampa Bay Lightning and lose, I won't feel worse compared to, say, if they would have played a different team and lost to Tampa or Florida or whomever in the second round. To me, it's just about like overall success of a playoff run and the team showing up. I got to say, though, I don't know why, man. Like last couple of days, it's kind of creeped into me, and maybe it's just like being a homer or some little excitement and tingling because it's the playoffs. I'm pretty confident, or I should say, I feel as good as you could feel playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like I'm not sitting here, and I'll say it. I thought last year against Montreal was going to be a cakewalk. I really did. I thought they were going to smash the Canadians, and we were wrong, and because of course. But with this Tampa team, I'm expecting a hard-fought series. Like I think everyone is. Like you're just being an asshole if you're saying that this isn't going to be a hard-fought series that can go either way. But I'm confident, man. And what I like about it is that, and this isn't me talking as a homer, I think this is the reality. If they can get past Tampa, they can get past anyone. Period. And that's just so good for confidence of the team and like morale. And let's say it like morale of the fans and all that. Like, man, if this team gets past Tampa, get the fuck out of the way because the Leafs are coming, right? Like you better be aware now. So the team will wake up. The fan base will wake up. A lot of people will shut up if they get past the Tampa Bay Lightning, which would be great. But I feel good about it, man. I'm confident. I'd say I'm confident about it. I like the way the Leafs look going into this series.
Yeah, if they can get the monkey off their back and finally win a playoff series for the first time since 2004, I mean, the sky's the limit for this team because the amount of pressure that is on this team. I talked to one of my other friends about this recently. It almost feels like this is the Leafs Stanley Cup final. Like every time now they begin the playoffs and it's only the first round, it almost seems like a Stanley Cup final because of the amount of pressure that is on this team to stop this narrative because they've been losing in the first round every year. The jokes are flying around. The jokes have been flying around since the moment they lost to Montreal. You go on Twitter, you go on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you go, it's the same jokes about the Leafs. This team can't get it done in the playoffs. They're going to lose in the first round. It doesn't matter who they play. They can't get by the first round. Matthews and Marner suck in the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. If they can finally get over the hump here, I couldn't agree with you more, Lepore. I think this team is going to be playing with a ton of confidence, and I think they're just going to have that weight off their shoulders, and they're going to play like the team that we watched in the regular season for the last 82 games.
I'll ask you this, and like this is a total hypothetical. What would you think would be a better momentum push for the second round onward? A win against Tampa, or if they would have played Boston and beaten Boston?
Honestly, I think both would be equally huge for momentum because with Boston, it would have been conquering the demons of the past. And here it's beating the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions in the opening round, which is monumental.
Yeah.
But listen, I feel good about the Leafs too. I think they're awesome, obviously. 115-point season, incredible depth. Matthews has taken his game to another level. Same with Marner. I love the third line this season. The way that Kampf has been playing and Kasha, who's a game time decision for game 1. Hopefully he factors into this series at some point. You know, the way that Ilya Mikheyev has played this year, scoring at a 30-goal pace in a depth role. I love the third line. And again, you know, the Leafs have been juggling the lines around a lot. Sometimes Kerfoot's been playing there. Sometimes he's been in the top 6. But I love the depth, especially in the top 9. The fourth line is whatever. It's not great, but then adding Giordano at the trade deadline, getting Muzzin back, who's been injured most of the season. Campbell has now been rounding into form, which is nice to see because I think a lot of Leaf fans were getting extremely worried, us included, when Jack Campbell was playing like absolute crap for about three to 4 months. So he seems to be rounding into form at the perfect time. But man, saying all that and as excited as I am, that is a beast of a team on the other side. And I'm scared, Lepore. I'm going to tell you because, it's not just the talent on the roster when you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and the way that they're able to, they'll lose guys in the offseason and they find new guys who step in. Like, for example, Ross Colton.
Yeah.
Like this dude scored 22 goals this year. Ross Colton. They find these guys that step into these depth roles and end up being a big part of the team. And I'm not saying that Ross Colton is some like integral part of this team, but when you go past the stars and you start going down the depth, you're like, wow, this team just has a lot of good players. And especially on defense too. I love this team's defense core, Vasilevsky, but the one thing I think people aren't talking about enough, Lepore, is John Cooper. I think right now he's the best coach in the NHL. And I know for a fact he is going to have this Lightning team prepared perfectly to try to slow down or shut down this Leafs team. Like, I know he's going to have the perfect game plan in place. It's just going to be a matter of if the Leafs can out-execute the Lightning and find a way to win this series against who I think is the best coach in the NHL right now.
Yeah, there's kind of that thing going around that there may be a benefit. It sounds weird, but a benefit to Tampa being the back-to-back champs, just because they may take their foot off the pedal a bit and relaxed or be tired or however you want to phrase it. But if you've ever heard Cooper in interviews, there's no fucking way, man. He's going to have that team motivated. He wants history. He wants 3 in a row. Like back-to-back, I mean, is obviously incredible.
that is legacy defining.
Oh,
if you can win 3 cups in a row, I mean, he's already going to be a Hall of Famer. But I mean, that's like slam dunk. Now you're getting into the territory of like how many coaches have ever won 3 cups in a row? I'd probably have to look that up.
Well, the last one would have been 3 in a row would have been the Islanders.
The Islanders, right?
In the early 80s. So, I mean, if they can do it 40 years later, it's incredible. So, yeah, I'm expecting exactly what you said. They're battle tested. Like I say that on the podcast a lot. Oh, this team's battle tested. This team's not. But they're the back-to-back champs. They win different ways. They can win with their goalie. They can outscore you. The defensive depth is there. They have an incredible coaching staff. They have no reason not to be confident. And the thing is, too, I'm really happy the Leafs got home ice advantage, really and truly. But at the same time, if there's one team that doesn't give a fuck if they're starting on the road, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. Or, let's say it goes 7, and that game 7, of course, will be in Toronto. Tampa doesn't care. Like Tampa's not fazed by a crowd or anything like that. Like we've been there, done that. They don't care. So there's a lot, man.
They kind of remind me of LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers when they wouldn't finish first in the Eastern Conference and they would kind of coast into the playoffs. Yeah, and they were like the 2nd seed or the 3rd or the 4th seed. And the Raptors were always like the 1st or the 2nd seed in the East. And, people would be like, this is the Raptors year. And then you realize that no, like LeBron James is just going to be locked in and have this team ready to go. And I kind of view the Tampa Bay Lightning in the same light. I said it last year before the start of the playoffs. I'm like, why is no one talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning? They did not have Nikita Kucherov the entire season. Steven Stamkos only played, I believe, like it was like barely half the season last year. And they still played at like a 108-point pace if you had extrapolated that out through 82 games. And then, of course, they go on to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. And it's kind of the same thing this year where it's like, did they really care about winning the President's Trophy?
Yeah.
Kucherov or finishing first in the Atlantic Division? That team didn't give a shit about that. This is what they care about right now. So like I said, kind of off the top of the show is like, don't be fooled by, oh, this team doesn't appear maybe to be as good as they were the last couple of years. This team's going to be ready to go. I promise you. And I'd be stunned, Lepore, if this doesn't go either 6 or 7 games.
Oh, you're thinking long series. Well, that's after the rant you just went on. That's a compliment to the Leafs, saying it's going to go 6 or 7. But is it prediction time?
It is time for predictions, Lepore.
Oh, man.
Let's get right into it. All right. So I'll start things off here. Okay.
Be my guest, Bruno. You know, I'm pretty happy you're starting with this one.
I'll give you a few minutes to think about it in case you want to change your mind or anything like that.
Yeah, convince me.
Here we go. Okay. Like I said, this is a tough spot for the Leafs. This is going to feel like the Stanley Cup final. I know that sounds kind of crazy to say, but with all the pressure that's on this team from the fans, from the media, from everyone around the hockey world who loves to make fun of this team, the pressure that's coming down even from Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan, the players know what's at stake here. Jobs are on the line. Careers are on the line. This is really big. And that scares me. It does. And I think the players are going to be thinking about that. I think they're liars if they're not thinking about the pressure and everything that's at stake in this series. Because who knows? This team, if it loses, and we'll get into this later in the podcast, who knows? I mean, I don't want to say it's a code red and you blow it all up, but it could look totally different next season if this goes really, really bad. So saying all that, I think the Leafs have the team this season. I think that they can play different styles. And I think that they are clicking at the right time, specifically the way that Jack Campbell has been playing recently. And the way that this D-core has rounded into form and looked really good since Mark Giordano came aboard, because the depth now on the blue line, when you look at the first, second, and third pair, you got quality guys on all three of those pairs. I think this team matches up really well with Tampa Bay. The Leafs were the second highest scoring team in the league this year. Defensively, their numbers didn't look great, especially because their goaltending was terrible and in the bottom third of the league this season. Yeah. But I really do think this Leaf team is as complete of a team as we've seen in the Matthews era. And even though the Tampa Bay Lightning have a ton of talent, and one other thing I wanted to add in, Lepore, and hopefully this doesn't scare people at home, since April 1st, the two leading scorers in the National Hockey League are Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov.
Oh, awesome.
Stamkos, 33 points in 16 games since April 1st. And Kucherov is number 2 with 31 points in 16 games. Oh, and they're also 1-2 in goals. Kucherov, 14 goals since the beginning of April. Stamkos, 12 goals since the beginning of April. 1-2 in the NHL. So despite the way they're playing, and despite them being back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the Leafs are going to have that home crowd behind them. Finally, it's been a while. Lepore, I am taking the Leafs in 6 games over the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. They are going to finally conquer their demons and move on to the second round of the playoffs. And it is going to be absolutely glorious.
Thanks for scaring the shit out of me even more, Bruno, because I knew Stammer was on a tear, but I guess I hadn't been paying attention to what Kucherov was pulling off. So Leafs in 6, eh? So then you have them winning on the road. Well, one thing, I don't know if it's been talked about too much, is there's going to be a lot of Leafs fans in Tampa. I mean, maybe it won't jump out as much because it's a blue and white crowd anyway, but a lot of Leafs fans, I'm sure, are making that trip down to Florida. It's going to be 7 home games. But, I mean, you touched on it. They're a big bad beast, the Tampa Bay Lightning, but so are the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I typically don't like when people will say, oh, it's going to be a short, easy series, because a series can be short, but still be a tough series. You can win on a sweep and you can win 4 overtime games. It's just, where the puck went those nights that you went out in 4 as opposed to a long series. But I'm going to say that I'm going to say that every single one of these games, I expect to be a full-on dogfight in this series. But I'm going to go on a limb here, Bruno. I'm going to say the Toronto Maple Leafs shock the world and win this series in 5 games.
Wow.
5 games.
I did not see that coming from you, Lepore, at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think like you, I think they're clicking at the right time. People might point to that game against Tampa where they just completely humiliated us, but whatever. I mean, good games like that are total one-offs if you ask me. I just think, man, I think, like you said, this team is kind of coming together at the right time. And I'll even say this, man, like no basis for this, but as far as the playoffs go, they're fucking due. Like you go over these numbers, these analytics of like, okay, well, Matthews has got this many goals in that many games, and Marner, it's like eventually those numbers have to at least try to even out. You'd think. So I'm hoping from an explosion from those two, and I'm predicting an explosion from those two. So I'm going to say it's going to be a super tight series, 1-goal games throughout. I think there's going to be overtimes. I think it's going to be a lot of excitement for Leafs fans. And I have the Leafs winning the series on home ice in Game 5.
That is bold, Lepore.
Why not? Fuck. Why not? Bring on the hate.
I was expecting a Leafs in 7 from you.
I was expecting that from you, actually.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I'm stunned, honestly, that you have Leafs in 5. I'm not stunned you have the Leafs winning the series, but in 5 games, that's just it's un-Lepore like. Let's say that.
To have any confidence in my team whatsoever.
I think we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because we all kind of went into the season being like, a lot of us aren't going to care about the regular season. We cared about the regular season because we do a Leafs podcast, but a lot of the Leaf fans I know were like, I don't give a shit about the regular season. This team, whatever. I don't care if Matthews scores 80 goals. Just come to me in April and May and let me know what happens then. But now it seems like all those people that didn't care about the regular season and didn't give a shit about the Leafs, they're all back on the bandwagon right now, Lepore. I promise you, because I know a lot of Leaf fans who are very excited about this team right now and are thinking that they could do real damage.
Yeah. I as far as regular season goes, I didn't necessarily care about like point totals and wins and all that, but I did care about how the team looked. And Spezza pointed out in a presser the other day saying that the team had a very good regular season. I think the word he used was focused. They had a very focused regular season. Because and I'll make this point too, except for that tough start the Leafs went through, I don't really feel like the Leafs really went through like a sky is falling moment in this season, during the season, like they typically do. There's 2 or 3 of those throughout the year where they're losing 3, 4, 5 in a row and people are freaking out just because it's Toronto, and it happens to every team. But, because it's Toronto, everyone's got to freak out. I mean, like there was the goaltending issues where it seemed like everything was going in, but they were winning. So you're not really going to go into full panic mode if you're winning games. So like, I agree with what Spezza said, and that's kind of what I'm taking into making my prediction for the first round of the playoffs. Heck, I could be wrong. It could be Tampa in 5 or 4 for that matter. But why not have some fun and pick your team to fucking dominate the defending Stanley Cup champions? But I feel good, man. Like it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, especially like of all years, you look at the Eastern Conference, every team is a good team. And I'll say this, if last year's Montreal Canadiens can find a way to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs of last year with their point totals, their projections, and then go on to beat a good Winnipeg team and Vegas, every team that makes the playoffs is good enough to nip any other team. Like, for example, if the Leafs are playing Washington can beat Toronto. If things go their way, like again, I say it all the time, when people overanalyze it, they're going to break things down. Like the Leafs are going to lose game 1 on a point shot in overtime that goes off 2 legs and picks a corner. And they're going to be breaking it down for hours as to why the Leafs lost. Okay, so if that went wide, rung around the boards, got tipped out and a breakaway scored, your opinion's completely different, or your opinion would be the same, I should say. But yeah, like these games come down to nothing. So to me, it doesn't really matter who they played. So bring it on, man. Bring it on. See, and I will say I do like it because, like I said, I don't really care who they're playing. So it might as well be a team that if they are able to win, let's go. Let's go. Get that confidence flowing. Get that confidence and just feel good. Be happy. Go into the games expecting to win. I guess that's the best way to put it. If this team beats Tampa, they're moving forward expecting to win every series.
Yeah, I would love to watch this team when they're loose and comfortable and the pressure's off. And there's always going to be pressure on this team, but if they can get through this first series, I think it's going to unlock something. I really do. And I'm very excited to see how that looks. And Another thing, Lepore, you brought up how, people kind of overanalyze from game to game. I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast recently, and they were talking about the NBA playoffs. And
I was going to say, Bill wasn't talking about hockey.
No, definitely not talking about hockey or the Leafs.
That's why he's so successful. He talks about everything but hockey.
Exactly. But he made such a simple yet interesting point, and I was like, wow, I never actually thought about it that way. It's the simplest thing ever. Think about a 7-game series. Okay, you only have to be better than your opponent a little more than 50% of the time.
Exactly.
Like, think about that for a second. You only have to win 4 of those 7 games.
Yeah.
So you could have 2 terrible games, 1 terrible game. It doesn't matter. You move on to the next game and you find a way to win, and all you have to do is be better than your opponent a little more than 50% of the time. It's as simple as that. So you're telling me, like you said, Lepore, after the Montreal Canadiens did what they did last year, coming into the playoffs as the worst team in the playoffs and getting to the Stanley Cup final, you're telling me this Leaf team can't do that this season? And even to go back to the goaltending point, the Leafs finished the season 22nd in the NHL in overall save percentage, 27th in the league in 5-on-5 save percentage. Despite that goaltending, they finished with 115 points this season. Mm-hmm. And now Jack Campbell's rounding into form. And again, who the hell knows how Jack Campbell's going to play in the first round of the playoffs. But if this team can get anything around just average to slightly above average goaltending, they are going to have a chance to beat any of these teams in a 7-game playoff series. And that has me really excited.
Your point, like the Bill Simmons thing, the way I've always seen it is, okay, like people are going to make their predictions, and we're going to do it shortly with all the series, but you'll pick a certain team to beat another team, say in 6 games. Like, I think they're a better team and they will beat their opponent in 6 games. So at the end of the day, all it takes is one game that team was quote unquote supposed to win, where they get goal lead, or there's a double deflection that goes in for a goal, or some weird penalties, or who knows what happens, injuries in the game. And now the series is flipped. That's all. That was the one game to make it. Well, now it's going 7. And now you're dealing with that. So each individual series is just, it's so close. Like for example, like to touch on what I was touching, my prediction, the 5 games, I think every game is going to be close. Like, I don't think Toronto's it's going to be a cakewalk for the Leafs. I just thought, hell, I'll say they do it in 5 games just because they might get outplayed in every game and win in 5 games. But
yeah, when you break it down like that, it really isn't a hot take, because it could go 5 games, but every game could be a 1-goal game. And 4 of those 5 games can go to overtime. And it's kind of like, do you remember that series in Matthews and Marner's rookie year against Washington, where Washington beat the Leafs in 6 games, and I believe 3 or 4 of those games went to overtime?
Yeah. Well,
and Washington, I think Washington had won the President's Trophy that season.
Yeah. Well, the Leafs won game 3 in overtime. I think that was the Bozak one. And was it game 1? They beat us in overtime, and then obviously game 7 or game 6. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was at least 3 of the 6 games went to overtime. It just shows how close some of these series can be. But I love it, Lepore. You had the bold prediction, Leafs in 5. I have Leafs in 6. Maybe we'll look like complete morons in a couple of weeks from now, but I'm confident about this.
The jersey winner better not be. If it's Tampa in 4, nobody wins the jersey. Fuck off, I said.
The contest is canceled.
Yeah.
If you say Tampa in 4, you're banned. Right. You're banned from the GFP podcast. You say Tampa in 4. We're just kidding. We love all you guys out there. Thank you. Thank you for listening to us ramble on about hockey. It's now been 59 episodes, and we're still going strong. It's time for a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Are you growing out your playoff beard? Let that thing loose up top, but our friends at MANSCAPED are here to help you avoid a disaster downstairs. The global leaders in below-the-waist grooming want to save your hockey pucks from a slap shot in crunch time this playoff season. 4 million men worldwide trust Manscaped to prepare them for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Join them and go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code GFP20. Lepore, these products are the best, man.
They are the best. And like Bruno said, the playoffs is about growing a beard on your face, but not on your balls. So make sure to go to manscaped.com, enter the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping, and get ready for the playoffs.
You said it, Lepore. These products are awesome. The Lawnmower 4.0, the body wash and shampoo. There's so many great products. Head to the website. Even their boxers, they feel incredible.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, you cannot go wrong. You got to get ready for playoff season, gentlemen. So you can get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Don't be a goon fighting your bush with the wrong trimmer. Choose the right tools for the job this playoff season with Manscaped. Before we get into some of the other series, I want to have a quick conversation about the Leafs and what is going to happen with this team if it loses in the first round of the playoffs. And I know there's different scenarios, like maybe they lose in 7 and it's really close. Maybe they get the doors blown off of them and they get swept like we just talked about. And those are two different scenarios, and that could result in two different outcomes when it comes to who's here next season, when it comes to management and the roster and things like that. But what do you think is going to happen if this team loses?
Like you said, a lot has to do with how they lose, but I know this is not the answer people want to hear, but not much. I really don't. This is an 115-point team. They have 2 of the best offensive players in the league. They have depth. Now, it's even defensively, they have depth. This team's not going to be... I think it's more like a Leaf hater thing, and I say this all the time. Like, oh, trade Marner. The trade Marner take comes from people who hate the Leafs, who want them to trade Marner because deep down they know that makes them worse. I don't see, unless this team gets like swept and absolutely humiliated, there really needs to be a culture change. But I think you roll it out again next year. And even as far as the management goes, like the takes about like firing fucking Dubas and Shanahan and all this. Yeah, let's fire a guy who built a 115-point team. Like, what? Has it ever been done? I mean, at the end of the day, all he can do is build a winning lineup. He can't get, and people's like, oh, he built a soft team. Well, he can't get in the DNA of these guys to make them show up in the playoffs. All he can do is put a product on the ice that scores goals and stops goals, and he's done that. So I don't see anything happening with management. As far as the team goes, I mean, there's changes every year. Who knows what would happen? But I think the Leafs from top to bottom and around the offices are going to look very similar next year, regardless of what the outcome is against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I tend to agree with most of what you said, Lepore. You look at this team, they have the 4th best record in the NHL this year. Like we've mentioned a million times, franchise record 115 points, 2nd highest scoring team in the league. Matthews, 60-goal season, back-to-back Rocket Richards, is probably going to win the Hart Trophy, barring some of these voters just galaxy braining this vote, in my opinion, at least. And, you know, how could you look at Kyle Dubas and say, sorry, man, you're fired after this? And again, maybe Campbell gets completely lit up and has like an 880 save percentage in this playoff series. And the fingers pointed at Dubas being like, listen, you got rid of, well, not that you got rid of Freddie Anderson, but you didn't re-sign Freddie Anderson. He had a great season with Carolina. Funny enough, Anderson is now injured for Carolina as the playoffs get underway.
Not
Monday.
Funny enough, Bruno. We're not laughing.
Well, it's just like this dude. I mean, especially what happened last year with his injuries.
I know.
It's like, of course, he's injured on the eve of the playoffs. I mean, it sucks because he's had a Vezina caliber season. He's not going to win the Vezina. Shesterkin is, but Anderson is more likely than not going to finish as a finalist, in my opinion. And, you know, that obviously sucks for them. But yeah, going back to the whole goalie point, maybe the fingers pointed at Dubas being like, listen, you didn't re-sign Anderson. You thought Campbell was the answer. You know, he's been a journeyman for a reason. He's never been a starter until he's been a Leaf. Like, what were you thinking? Peter Mrazek, another disastrous signing. So maybe they look at Dubas and say, that's unacceptable. You did not give this team adequate goaltending. You're out the door. But honestly, I tend to agree with you because I don't think you panic. especially, and I know it sounds insane and people probably think we're nuts.
Now, the definition of insanity, yeah, you keep hearing that, right?
Keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, right? And it honestly, it is getting to that point. Like if they lose again, yes, you could totally make that argument.
Yeah, you can already make that argument.
I mean, you can already make that argument as it stands right now. But I mean, if they lose to the back-to-back defending champs and Tampa goes on, whether it's getting to the conference final or another Stanley Cup final, how do you look at this and say you got to blow up this roster? Now, another thing that I think we could point at Dubas is if this team gets like brutally outplayed from like a physical standpoint and a toughness standpoint, because one thing Sheldon Keefe mentioned in one of his press conferences recently, he said, I expect it to be a physical, borderline violent series.
Oh,
in a lot of ways.
Did I hear him say that Tampa like led the playoffs in skirmishes or something? He made that point.
Yes, I saw that as well. I saw that on Twitter where he mentioned that he watched a lot of Tampa's playoff run from last season. He noticed after the whistle, they would get into a lot of scrums, try to piss off the opponent, try some dirty stuff. And you know what? I honestly attribute that to John Cooper because he knows what he's doing and he knows what it takes to win in the playoffs. And sometimes it's those little things where you're just getting under the skin of your opponents. And Lepore, we saw it last year with Montreal, the way that Ben Sherratt and Shea Weber and some of those other guys on the back end and even up front on Montreal's forward group, they were all trying to irritate Matthews and Marner. I mean, you remember that classic picture where I think it was Sherratt that was holding Matthews from behind and he was laughing and smiling. I don't want to see any of that shit in the first round. I want to see Matthews bite back. I want to see Bunting. I mean, Bunting, who knows when he's going to play because he's still injured at this point. I want to see Bunting bite back, Wayne Simmons, Kyle Clifford, depending on how much he actually plays in this series. I want to see a little bit more toughness, and I want to see the Leafs stand up for themselves. And I think they've done that this season for the most part, Lepore. I think they have proven that they aren't afraid of any team. It's not like the Leafs are some overly physical team that's scaring other teams, but I think that they've proven throughout the season that you're not just going to walk all over this team. And I know that Tampa is going to try to push their buttons a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how the Leafs respond in the moment.
There's just certain guys I don't want to say I want to see them snap, but there's certain guys I want to see play angry. And I'll point to John Tavares. I want his role to kind of change a little bit. Like John's a quiet guy and that's who he is. But like, I want to see him cross-check somebody after the whistle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I know Kerfoot has that in him. He can do it. Mikheyev can do it. We mentioned Bunting. Like, Matthews got suspended for cross-checking Dahlin within the throat. Like, I mean, so he's got it. I'm not expecting anything from Marner or Willie, but yeah. And even down in the D, like Riley, play pissed off. We expect it from Muzzin, Giordano, man. Show that you're a vet.
Play pissed off.
Oh, that's exactly what
that's
you
it
want
right
to
there.
see.
You nailed it with that line.
Yeah.
Play pissed off. I love it.
And you know what, Bruno, I'll get your opinion on this and how you feel. There's ebbs and flows to a series. They say there's no momentum between games. I sat here and I predicted the Leafs will win in 5. I get the feeling in the first 5 minutes of game 1, I'll know if I was completely off my rocker or if I was onto something. I just like, there's that thing in me that we're going to know right away. Like where this is going.
100%.
Maybe that's an insult to the Leafs because it's just, we see there's like some sensitivity there that like this thing can teeter off in a hurry. But I think we'll know very quickly, especially with the crowd. They're at home, like right opening face-off, puck goes in, lay ahead. If they can score early, like take it to Tampa early, get in Vasilevsky's head, like all that. Well, no, I really feel that way. Maybe that's me being an over-emotional fan. But I just think we're going to know very quickly, like the direction the series is going to go.
No, Lepore, I couldn't agree more because one thing that sticks in my mind from that Habs series last year, I will never forget this. When Josh Anderson played his first shift of the series, that guy came out like a human wrecking ball. He was literally flying around the ice on his first shift, trying to kill Leafs. I like, seriously, he took a run at Wayne Simmons in the first shift, like literally trying to end his career. Like those guys And it wasn't just Josh Anderson. It was, I can go down the list. I mentioned like Shea Weber and Ben Sherrod and those guys. Like they were taking runs at the Leafs. They knew right away, let's come in, let's be physical, let's get right in their face, and let's see how they respond. And I think the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to do the exact same thing. And again, I don't know if, you're going to see Pat Maroon go out there and try to kill someone, or Victor Hedman try to slash someone in the back of the leg or in the back or something. But I think there's going to be some feistiness right from the drop of the puck. And we will see right away if the Leafs are ready to handle that.
It's a weird thing. And I mean, you can point to the teams that are like absolute and real contenders, but I found in the past that within the first couple nights of the playoffs, if you've watched every game, you know who's going to win the cup. Like I remember watching it would have been 2012, the Canucks against the Kings. I knew like the Kings are going to win the cup just because like the style they were playing with and the style they were playing and the weight they were playing with, no one's going to beat them. You just had that feeling that nobody was going to beat them. You just knew in a hurry. And last couple of years with Tampa, you saw it early. Like they were just cruising. And it's like, no one's going to beat them. Like you just kind of knew it was easy money. So we'll find out quick, man. These are two good teams. So I don't know, man. Especially with the Leafs. I mean, being at home, you can call it a negative thing because with the pressure that is playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they lose game 1 and now game 2 is a must win. Oh, it's gonna get hits. It's ugly, man. So
yeah, if the Leafs lose that first game on home ice, game 2 is going to be just absolutely pressure packed.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is a team that has responded well to being under pressure and being in spots where seemingly things could fall off a cliff and go in the opposite direction. And they have found a way to not let that happen. And not just this season, even going back to last season, minus losing in the playoffs to Montreal. I'll say that. But Lepore, if there isn't anything else you want to get off your chest about this series of the Leafs, let's move on to some other series around the NHL.
Let's have some fun. We can have some fun with these ones and not be completely on edge and biting our nails.
Exactly. Let's stay in the Atlantic Division and start with Florida taking on the Washington Capitals.
Okay.
I'll just get this started.
Sure.
Listen, I have been on the record as saying I think Florida is sort of a fraudulent team.
Oh.
And I'll say, when I say fraudulent, I know it sounds a little aggressive to say that. I kind of view them really in the same boat as the Leafs. And I'm not saying the Leafs are frauds, but I think it's been just completely ridiculous that people have held Florida on this pedestal all season. And I get it. They won the President's Trophy, scored over four goals a game, an incredible offense. Defensively, this team is not very good. Goaltending wise, average team. You don't really know what you're going to get from Bobrovsky. But saying all that, I think they handle the Capitals pretty easily. I'm going to say Florida. I'm going to say Florida in 5 against Washington.
Okay, I was going to say Florida in 6. I think Washington, with their experience, puts up a good fight. I think they know how to push the buttons of a team like Florida, but I just think Florida's too much depth, too much speed, too much scoring, and they'll irk it out in a hard-fought 6-game series. To your point about Florida being frauds, like I'm not saying that, I'm not going to go as far as say, they're a bunch of frauds, but something I just noticed the other day looking at, the different teams around the league and their seasons, I compared the Leafs to the Panthers, and the Panthers started the season 7-0-0. The Leafs started 2-4-1. Okay. Like your first 2 weeks of the season. That's the
difference right there.
That's the difference. Number one. So that's the difference right there. Number one. And number two, everyone knows the stat. Well, Florida went 13-2 in overtime. So you switch, and the Leafs went, I believe, 500-ish in overtime shootout. And I think Florida altogether overtime shootout was like 16-6. So if you even those out, both teams go 500 overtime and shootout because they're coin flips. And you really take away that first week, and people say, "Oh, you can't just take it away." But you know what I mean by it's the first week of the season. That's the difference. And would we be looking at Florida the same way? But I mean, they're a great team. They are definitely capable of beating anyone, and it will be something if Washington can pull an upset in this series. I guess this would be the biggest upset do you think? Or maybe,
I mean, betting wise, I actually have the odds with me right now.
maybe
So
Calgary,
the
Dallas.
Panthers are minus 370 favorites. The Capitals are plus 290 to win the series.
Okay.
So Lepore, they're tied for the second biggest underdog of the first round.
It's got to be Dallas, right?
The biggest underdog is Nashville
Oh, really?
against Colorado. And then
Okay.
Dallas and the Capitals are tied for the second biggest underdog.
Yeah. For a split second there, I forgot Nashville was playing Colorado.
Yeah, they're massive underdogs. And we'll get into that when we get over the Western Conference. But yeah, with Florida and this Aaron Ekblad injury, and I know that they've been kind of cruising along without Ekblad, but we don't really know if he's going to be ready for game one. He's been out since the middle of March. He's obviously a massive part of that team. If he's not fully healthy, I don't know if that team can make a deep playoff run without its number one defenseman. I think that will catch up to them very, very quickly. You know, it's one thing when you're destroying Buffalo and Ottawa and Montreal, even though they lost 10-2 to Montreal.
Yeah, weird one.
Of the season. I know they were resting pretty much their whole team, but it's one thing to just demolish all those teams because that's what the Panthers did all season, was just beat up on shitty teams. And again, they beat good teams as well. But when you're locked into a 7-game series against a good team and you don't have Aaron Ekblad, that's going to be a problem. So we'll see what happens down the line with Florida, but we're both in agreement. They should pretty easily get through Washington. Another thing, Ovechkin is banged up right now. He's not going to be 100%. So I think Washington's in trouble. Lepore, let's stay in the Eastern Conference and go over to the Bruins and Hurricanes. And Lepore, this is essentially a pick 'em at this point. Both teams minus 110, looking at the betting odds, like
really.
And maybe this is because of the Freddie Anderson injury, who, like I mentioned, had a very good season in net for Carolina, and he will not be starting game one. It'll be Antti Ranta, I believe. That is yet to be confirmed because they got that other rookie goalie who's been playing well.
Yeah,
but
I think I did hear Ranta is going to be okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you think Boston can win this series against Carolina, who had the second best record in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, as I said before, I mean, any team in the East is capable of beating anyone. So Boston is definitely capable of beating Carolina. I'm shocked that's at even money. I'm shocked because I still think that's a pretty big upset. I mean, at the end of the day, how many points did Carolina finish with? 117?
Let me double check that. They finished Lepore with 116 points.
Okay. And then Boston finished with like
107.
Okay, 107. Okay. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, that still is a gap as far as playoff teams are concerned. But is that one of those things where Vegas is just giving too much credit to a brand and expectations to the Bruins? Like I have Carolina winning that series.
So do I.
I'd be pretty surprised if the Bruins win that series.
I like Carolina as well. Even going back to last season, I was really bullish on them. I actually had them going. I'm pretty sure I had them going to the Cup final last year in the Eastern Conference. I thought the matchup between Carolina and Tampa was almost going to decide like who was going to the Cup final. Obviously, Tampa got through them.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm right there with you. I think a lot of it does have to do with the Bruins and their past and how they're just one of those public teams that people just think year after year, oh, it's the big bad Boston Bruins, Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak. They're great, right? But they're just not the same team they were, 2-3 years ago.
Well, right off the bat, if it's even money, if both teams are minus 110, Carolina has home ice advantage. So right there, that means Vegas thinks under that rationale, Boston's actually a better team. It's just even because Carolina has home ice. It's weird. That's a weird one. I don't know. That's tempting. That's tempting, actually.
And maybe Vegas is factoring in some of the advanced metrics because even though Carolina finishes really high and when you look at like Corsi and expected goals and all that stuff, like Boston is also pretty high on the list when it comes to 5-on-5 play.
Defensively, 5-on-5, their metrics are like crazy good.
Are really good. So I can see that being a reason why they're priced the way they are. But I'm with you, man. I have Carolina winning this series even without Freddie Anderson. I mean, if we want to put number of games on it, I'll say Carolina in 6.
Me too. It's Carolina in 6. Again, they're the Bruins. They're going to put up a fight. But I think similar to that Washington-Florida series, just too much depth, too much scoring, too balanced. Carolina pulls it
That's
out.
the thing with Carolina. Like when you look at the most balanced teams in the NHL, you could argue that they could be the most balanced team really in the league. And we're not saying they're the best team, but you look at their forward group, their defense core, when their goaltending is even like Antti Ranta, like he's a really good goalie. He didn't have the season Anderson had, but he's more than capable of playing well, especially in a 7-game series. So I think that's enough of that, Lepore. We both have Canes in 6. How about Penguins and Rangers?
This is a great one, man. Primetime Crosby playing at Madison Square Garden, New York Rangers. I'm excited for this series. I think this is going to be a good one. I think this is going to be one to remember. I think it's going to have everything. The Rangers, is it just me or have the Rangers kind of had Pittsburgh's number like the last few years? It just seems like they always seem to nip them. But I don't know if it's possible for me to bet against my boy Sid in this situation.
I knew it.
Impossible. The Minnesota Wild and Sidney Crosby, Lepore will never bet against them. But I am going to say that the Penguins pull the upset, and I'm going to say they do it in 7 games. Madison Square Garden, pull out the red carpet for Sidney Crosby. It's his stage, and Pittsburgh gets it done. 7 games.
Yeah, I knew there was no way you were betting against Sidney Crosby. There's no chance. But Lepore, I am looking at the Penguins' last few seasons here. They have lost 4 consecutive playoff series. Does that change your mind at all?
No.
Going back to last season, they lost in 6 games to the Islanders in the first round. They lost in 4 games to the Habs in the qualifying round the year before that. Got swept against the Islanders in 2019 and then lost to the Washington Capitals in the second round in 2018.
Yeah.
I believe that was the year the Capitals won the Stanley Cup.
It was because they finally beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kuznetsov did the bird thing, the overtime winner in game 6, I believe.
Yes, that's right. That was the bird Selly.
Yeah, they finally slayed the dragon.
But I mean, this team recently, Lepore, has not had a lot of success in the playoffs. But I mean, Sidney Crosby's had a great season. It's hard to bet against that team. But I really do like this Rangers team. And I know the analytics community doesn't like this team. And the whole narrative around the team this year was that Igor Shesterkin carried them. And he had one of the greatest goaltending seasons we've seen, like since Dominic Hasek, with his goals saved above expected. He put up a .935 save percentage. And without Shesterkin, this team sucks. But this is a Rangers team that has a lot of talent. Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, who scored 52 goals this season. They got some players here. Andrew Kopp, since coming over at the trade deadline, over a point-a-game player, giving them some nice depth. Norris Trophy winner on defense, Adam Fox. So when you look at this team, the talent is there. And looking since the trade deadline, I was meaning to say this about the Leafs earlier, Lepore. Did you know
the record?
Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs, since the trade deadline, second best record in the NHL at 15-3-2.
Yeah, people were always throwing out the record since Giordano.
Yeah, and Minnesota actually has the best record since the trade deadline at 17-2-3, 841 points percentage. Yeah. The New York Rangers, 12-6-1 since the trade deadline. So nothing fantastic, but
it's funny how in the East 12-6-1 is nothing fantastic.
Yeah, I know, hilarious. It just seems like all the playoff teams in the East just went ballistic this year. So like a 107-point season from Boston gets you a wild card spot, which is insane. But I like this Rangers team, Lepore. I'm going to pick Rangers in 7 because I think it's going to be a really close series, but with home ice advantage and Igor Shesterkin playing at the level he's playing at, I'm going to give this series to the Rangers in 7 games.
Okay. I love the battle we got going on this series and looking forward to it.
Should be awesome. So that does it for the East. And now let's move on to the West. And we will start things off, Lepore, with the Avalanche taking on the Nashville Predators. And like I said, the Predators are the biggest underdog, plus 500. The Avalanche, Lepore, minus 700 to win this series. So
why bother?
Give me your prediction.
Colorado's got a lot going on, man. Colorado has a lot going on. I think that loss to Vegas last year in the playoffs really irks them. I mentioned before how I really and truly hope that the Leafs play pissed off in the series against Tampa. I'm expecting Colorado to play pissed off and to come out like a bat out of hell. I'm going to say that Colorado wins that series. Let's circle. I'll say 5. I'll say Avs in 5. If Nashville's a tricky team. If they push it further, I can see it. But I'll circle the mighty Avalanche in 5 games.
All right. I don't think this series is going to be a contest at all. I got Avalanche in 4.
4. Okay.
I think they're going to steamroll this team. But you said it, like Nashville, they've kind of under the radar had a pretty solid season. Like
they've got guys. They have guys. Like
they do. They do have guys. Like Matt Duchene scored over 40 goals this year.
Yeah, remember when everyone was shitting?
Insane.
Remember when everyone was shitting on that contract? Got you 40 goals. Oh my
God! It just looked like that dude was just gonna fade off and be terrible, and that contract was gonna look egregious for however many years he has left on it. But man, shout out to Matt Duchene, who rose from the dead this season and scored 40 plus goals. They do have an issue right now with their goaltending. Saros is injured, and they're saying he's probably going to be back for this series, but
it's the playoffs. That's the line. Oh, he's probably going to be back or game time. No, he's
that's
not.
What all of these teams are saying, but it's always tough. I remember actually going back to, I think it was the first Lightning Stanley Cup where Hedman was injured heading into the playoffs.
Okay.
And they were saying that he may have like torn a ligament in his ankle.
Okay.
And it scared me off of them in one of my playoff pools. And then literally game 1, they're like, Hedman's playing. And like my lineup was already locked and he's on the ice and he looked fantastic, Lepore. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, it was like the bunting thing from a few weeks ago, them saying that like, oh, it's going to be a while. And like, oh, he woke up feeling better. Like, come on. It's all bullshit.
It's you got to take whatever these teams say with a grain of salt, because you never really know what's going on with some of these injuries. But I mean, if Saros isn't at 100%, I think this team is screwed because he had a really good season in net for the Predators. The Avalanche, I still think, and I've been saying this for the last 2 years, the Avalanche are the best team in the NHL. Nathan McKinnon, Lepore, 40 points in his last 25 playoff games.
That's pretty good.
Not bad.
Can we get some of that in Toronto with our best players?
Oh, God. Just one time, man. Just one time. But yeah, playoff Nathan McKinnon is a real thing. He's an absolute monster at this time of year. So yeah, I got the Avalanche in 4. Lepore, this series really has me intrigued. The St. Louis Blues against the Minnesota Wild, your second favorite team, let's call home.
Yeah, maybe second or third between them and the Kings. Everyone circled this one as kind of like the Tampa Toronto of the West, like 2 teams that should not be playing each other in the first round. I will say this is the one series that, I think a lot of the series are going to be very close, but for the most part, a team jumps out to me in each and every series, except for this one. Like, I have no idea what to predict. I think both teams have a lot of guys who fly under the radar because of the markets they're playing in. I think they both play a quote unquote a playoff style. I was gonna say it's like the cheesy line of the playoff style, but again, I have no idea. So I'm gonna go with the fave. And by that I mean my favorite team, the Minnesota Wild. I'm gonna say Minnesota in 6.
Okay. I knew you were going to take the Wild because you absolutely love that team, but do you like them a little less now that they have Marc-Andre Fleury?
Yes, I do. That's why I said 6, not 5.
Okay. Because we also know that you are the number 1 Marc-Andre Fleury hater probably on the planet.
Yeah, it was dirty when they got him. Didn't feel right.
But you still have the Wild in 6, Lepore. I really like this Blues team.
So do I, but I love Minnesota.
Hey, that's totally fair. And I think the reason, Minnesota's the favorite in this series. They are at minus 150, whereas the Blues are plus 130 underdogs. And obviously the Blues are on the road, but I really like this St. Louis team. They have been playing so well. Again, I've been going over these numbers since the trade deadline, Lepore. The Blues are 15-4-2.
Okay.
the fourth best record in the NHL behind Minnesota, number 1.
Yeah.
The Leafs, number 2, Florida, number 3, St. Louis, number 4, 15-4-2.
Yeah. I think Minnesota had like a 6-game losing streak before they just went on a tear.
Yeah. Both teams have been playing excellent hockey. And I mentioned those numbers when it comes to Kucherov and Stamkos, how they're the 2 leading scorers in the NHL since the beginning of April. Right behind them, number 3 on that list, is Blues forward Pavel Buchnevich. 25 points in his last 16 games. Tarasenko is 5th in the league in scoring since the beginning of April. 24 points in his last 16 games. Robert Thomas, same thing, 24 points in his last 16 games. Those Blues forwards in their top 6 are buzzing right now. And again, the Wild are also buzzing. They have the best record in the league since the trade deadline, but I really like this Blues team. I think they have more firepower up front than the Minnesota Wild. And I think they're going to win this series as the underdog. I'm going to say the Blues take out the Wild in 6 games.
That's a good bet at plus 130. That's good value. Because I'll admit it, like my brain says St. Louis, but my heart says Minnesota. And I think it's going to be a great series. I'm going to watch every minute of it. But no, I'm okay with the Blues pick. I really am. And Thomas, though, man, it's one of those things where like a player is underrated and then everyone starts calling a guy the most underrated player in the league. And then it's like, well, once he's at that point, he's no longer underrated because everyone's talking about him. And he's been that guy. Awesome player, man. Did he, I would say he didn't lead the league in assists, but he was almost there.
Yeah, he had like 77 points this season. Let me
something
check.
Banana.
Right. Yeah,
he had
77 points in 72 games. He had 57 assists this season.
Okay, maybe it was like 5-on-5 assists or like primary assists or something. There was something. He was like at the top, if not like very close to the top.
Yeah, he had an awesome breakout season. They got several point per game players on their team, and like Ryan O'Reilly finished like 5th on the team in scoring this year.
Yeah,
and obviously he was like their main guy when they won the Stanley Cup a few seasons ago. And now he's kind of taken a back seat. He's obviously still a very important player, but from an offensive standpoint, there's other guys. And now Tarasenko is back. Because remember, Tarasenko, the last few seasons, injuries,
yes, for a trade.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
We thought that Seattle was going to take him in the expansion draft. That contract just sitting there nice and juicy. But Tarasenko stayed with St. Louis. He's had an amazing bounce back season. That's a very dangerous player. This is a very dangerous team. So yeah, I like the Blues in 6 games to pull off the upset. The one thing, the advanced stats do favor Minnesota, Lepore. I think that's why a lot of people are kind of off the Blues because the advanced numbers don't really favor them too much. But I think they're playing really well, and I think they're going to win this series. So
all right, it's another one we disagree on. I love it.
Lepore, how about the Stars and Calgary Flames?
Yeah. I'm going to start off by saying that I really like Dallas, and specifically, I really like their kids. I love Robertson. Hopefully his brother can turn out to be something that even kind of mirrors what he is. I like Hintz. I mean, then you go down the line and you see guys like Pavelski. What's not to like about Pavelski, Klingberg? But I just think Calgary is too much of a buzzsaw right now. And I'm always scared to say it because I feel even when a team is far superior than their opponent, it doesn't happen this way or play it this way because these games are so close. But I have the Flames in a sweep. Like, I really think they're going to take it. Wow. They're really going to take it to Dallas. And I think they just push them aside easy peasy and scare the shit. And I think Calgary's going to scare the shit out of everyone in series number 1.
The Flames are the real deal. You talked about this earlier, how back in 2012, you watched the first couple of games and you're like, wow, the Kings are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I think we might see something similar. Obviously, Daryl Sutter coached both teams. And obviously, going back in the past, me and Lepore didn't necessarily think things were going to work out with Daryl Sutter in Calgary. But oh my God, have we been proved wrong, because this team is the real deal.
Yeah.
They look awesome. They can play a perfect playoff style. They can score. They play physical. They're a tight defensive team. They have a great goaltender. I think they're also going to get through Dallas pretty easily. Now, I will say this, going back to the offseason, Lepore, Dallas was kind of one of my under the radar teams who I said to put a futures bet on to win the Stanley Cup at like 35-1 or whatever they were. Now, I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but this is a Dallas team that has talent.
Yeah, there's Yeah, one of those lineups you look at and you can name every guy. It's a nice team for sure.
Yeah, you look at it, you're like, wow, this should have been like a 107-point team, not a team that barely made the playoffs as a wild card seed. But saying that, I think this Calgary team is loaded. I love their depth. They play, like I said, a perfect playoff style, or at least I think they are going to play a perfect playoff style to get through 4 rounds of this thing. I will say the Flames. I'll say oh God. I'll say I know they're pretty big favorites. They're minus 370 to win this series. You know what though, Lepore? Okay, screw it. Flames in 5.
I think that's even low. Like minus 370. Like I would have thought this would be like a minus 600 or 500 or something.
Yeah, Dallas, I'm telling you, man, they're sneaky. I was about to say Flames in 6 and thinking that Dallas, there's a team that just got to the Cup final a couple of years ago in the bubble.
Yeah.
All right. There's a team that knows how to win. So saying that, I'm still going to stick with my Calgary in 5.
Okay.
All right, Lepore, the last series. Now, you know what we're talking about next, right? It is the Edmonton Oilers taking on the LA Kings. I always have a smile on my face when we talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
You go first with this one.
Okay, because you're going to go on for like an hour. Fuck. That's why I
promise
go first.
I won't. So we got to wrap this thing up pretty soon here.
Yeah, I'd be falling asleep during Bruno's rant about the Edmonton Oilers. It'd be past midnight here. But yeah, I think a big factor in this series is going to be the lack of Drew Doughty for the LA Kings. Say what you want about Doughty and if you think he's declined, but he's got the experience. He's won before and he's an important figure both on and off the ice for that team. I think it's going to matter. I really do. And then you look at Edmonton's lineup, and I think the only real injury they have is Clefbaum. So no worries in that regard. I'm expecting Draisaitl and McDavid to go full nuclear in this series. I think, again, it's going to be a hard-fought series. I will say that the Oilers get past the LA Kings and win this series in 6 games. Okay. That's where I'll go with it. Yeah. I think McDavid and Draisaitl are just going to be way too much. And LA's built in a way that could stop like a high flying team. I mean, they got Philip Deneau, so it's like apparently it was a priority number 1. And they have some good young D, but again, like not having Doughty is huge. And let's face it, the Kings still have a lot of guys past their prime. So I think they'll put up a good fight, but I think Edmonton will just be too much speed, too much scoring from the two-headed monster.
Yeah, what it comes down to is I just don't think this Kings team is very good.
Yeah.
And I don't really think the Oilers are that good either. I mean, a lot of people know where I stand on the Edmonton Oilers. I know they have 2 of the best players in the world, and they're explosive and can take over a game and can take over a series. And I think they're going to have a pretty easy time getting through the Kings. I don't have a lot of confidence in Edmonton getting past the first round, but this is such a nice matchup for the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, you honestly could argue that the Kings are the weakest team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah. When you just look at their roster without Drew Doughty, as you mentioned, like I'm looking at their D-core, Lepore. My goodness. Alex Edler, Troy Stetcher, Mikey Anderson, Oli Mata, Sean Dursey, who was elite. He's been excellent.
He's been awesome, yeah.
But man, I just can't see this team beating Edmonton.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like the Oilers to make a deep run, they're going to get through the Kings. And I'm right there with you, Lepore. I got the Oilers in 6.
The one thing I can see happening that may play into, or I should say that may really and truly work for the Kings, is they turn this series into a complete shit show. I think that's their chance. Just like we mentioned, the stuff after the whistle, like really go full blown fuck you mode. We're here to annoy you and piss you off. Because let's face it, I mean, Edmonton is deadly on the power play, and typically in the playoffs there are fewer power plays. So if that can kind of go LA's way, that the refs aren't calling it like they should, and I'll say it, they won't call it like they should. Maybe that's LA's chance, but it's going to take a lot. It would take something very unexpected for the series to go completely their way and them get a win here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the formula, because as we know, I mean, we talked about this on at least the last 2 or 3 shows how Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl don't even rank in the top 5 and 5-on-5 points this season. Like they obviously do a ton of damage on the power play, and they will scare the hell out of any team on the power play, much like the Leafs. But if you can get this team into a situation where they have to beat you at 5-on-5, and like you said, Lepore, these refs, they're going to put their whistles away in the playoffs. I don't think anything's going to change this season.
Where there's that stat with McDavid, he's drawn like 1 penalty in his last like 14 or 15 playoff games or something.
It's insane. So if that continues and this Oilers team is forced to outplay teams at 5-on-5, I think they're going to get into some problems. And I think it's really going to present itself against Calgary, where I think Calgary is just a much better 5-on-5 team. But in this series, I mean, Edmonton, if you screw this up, this is going to be bad.
This is bad. Yeah.
Like we talk about this Kings team.
We talk about like the Leafs and what'll happen. If Edmonton loses to LA, it could be bad.
Yeah. And especially if they lose in oh God, imagine they lose in 5 games.
Don't even, LA just mops the floor with them.
Oh my God, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they got swept. They got swept by the Jets last year. So
yeah, anything could happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it, Lepore. We went through every first round series, gave our picks. We obviously gave our Leaf picks earlier in the podcast. Lepore has the Leafs in 5. I have the Leafs in 6 over the Lightning. Any final thoughts, Lepore, before we wrap this thing up?
Nerve-wracking, man. Hopefully we can get to sleep tonight, calm our nerves and get some sleep, because it's a big day tomorrow, man. Like you said, we've been saying all year that the regular season doesn't matter. It's all about the playoffs. Well, the playoffs are here, so get ready for it. Find that comfy spot on your couch and get ready to go full-blown anxiety mode, because that's what the Toronto Maple Leafs will surely bring you.
You said it, Lepore. Honestly, for Leafs Nation, are we even going to be able to enjoy the playoffs?
No, it's not enjoyable at all, bro. Not even.
It is not an enjoyable experience. Everyone is just going to be stressed out from game to game.
Fuck.
Anxiety levels through the roof, nerves through the roof.
This team could be up 3-0 in the series, going into the third period up 5-0, and I wouldn't be completely calm.
Yeah, and I'd be scared still.
There'd be the thing in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it is just you can't even explain how. I mean, we've seen it all with this team. We have seen it all, so nothing would surprise me at this point. And like you said, until the buzzer sounds and the Leafs win game number 4 of the first round, I will not be comfortable.
Nope.
No one will be comfortable.
No.
But we can't wait for it.
Yeah.
So buckle up, everybody, and we will be here along the way. Hopefully, the Leafs go past the first round this year, so we don't have to turn this into a Montreal Canadiens podcast.
Happened last year.
Oh God, imagine we have to turn this into an Edmonton Oilers podcast.
Well, it was good for ratings last year with Montreal. It got us lots of clicks. That's for sure.
That's true. So come on,
Montreal,
Leafs,
when you need them,
come through for GFP.
Yeah.
But that is going to do it for episode 59 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast, or GFP. A Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed this show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really enjoyed the show today, then you know what? Go over to YouTube and smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is releasing future videos. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Leafs Nation, best of luck. We will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.